Hello everyone, Vanguard of Valor here, and welcome to Assault Android Cactus. Bit of a strange sounding name to be sure, but it's a pretty interesting twin-stick shooter that was recently released from early access into a full release, developed and published by Witchbeam. We're going to hop into the main meat and potatoes of the game here and talk about it a little bit so you guys can see what the game's all about. Then we'll talk about some of the things that I think are great and some of the things that I think are not so great about it. So, there's a variety of characters. You start with these 4 unlocked, but there are additional characters that you can unlock as you beat bosses. And that's pretty cool because they all have their own appearances, personalities, and weaponry, which keeps things interesting. We're going to start off here with the titular Assault Android Cactus. So, she starts off with an assault rifle and a flamethrower, and it is a pretty interesting weapon combo, so let's hop into the game here and get to work. So we're going to hop into, I think, the 9th level of the game here to get a flavor for what the game is like, so let's do it. We fall into these levels, and we have to do our best to survive. Now, enemies, of course, will come at us. Holding down our left mouse button will permanently fire our primary weapon. No problem at all. We just have to make sure that we try and kill enemies as fast as we can and avoid damage. Surprise, surprise, very classic twin-stick shootery. But there's a lot going on screen that's worth mentioning. In the top left, you can see our health there. We actually can absorb damage without any negative consequences. I just walked into some bullets there, and it really doesn't matter. But it is important to notice that if we take too much damage, we'll die, and that's no good at all. There are these bigger and beefier enemies, which take a bit more firepower to take down, and that is what we have our secondary for. By right-clicking, we can switch to our secondary, which has a limited amount of use before we have to let it recharge, as you can see by the bars around the character, and once it's recharged, you'll be able to switch over and use your secondary weapon again to your heart's content. Now, you can use it again before it's fully recharged, but surprise, surprise, the duration will be reduced. Now, there are also power-ups on the level that we're picking up. There are 3 different types. There is an EMP blast, which does this. Big area effect beam that stuns all the enemies currently on screen. There's the firepower upgrade, which we currently have, which has those 2 auto-firing drones beside you, and that's a whole bunch of bombs that just killed us. Dying actually isn't terrible in this game, as even if you do, you can just tap your primary fire button to come back to life, but that is when another one of the HUD elements comes into play. In the top center of the screen there, we have a battery. If the battery is drained, we lose the mission. Every time we die, we lose some battery charge. You can see there's a green icon on the map. Picking that up recharges our battery and helps us stay alive. In the early levels, running out of battery is not a major concern, but it does become a problem once you get a little bit further in, so it's not like you can just ignore it completely. In addition to that, there's some more things going on in the game. Whenever you switch between your primary and secondary weapons, you get a temporary invulnerability, so you can use that to dodge through major attacks, big explosions, environmental hazards, and a variety of other nasty things. So if you're using it carefully, you can actually do pretty well with it often, and it's pretty handy. Moreover, you can see the chain bar on the top left there that just went away because I wasn't able to keep killing things. Every time you kill an enemy, it adds to your chain bar, which eventually adds to additional score being created and is a way of tracking how well you're doing in the stage. Like many twin-stick shooters, this game is in many ways a score attack game, and for people who are interested in that kind of thing, you'll probably find this right up your alley. Being able to maintain a combo throughout the entire stage is one of the major challenges of Assault Android Cactus. At the moment, we've already lost our combo 2 or 3 times, so we won't be getting any major rewards, and that's the end of the stage. Now, that does of course give us a score at the end, as we can see here. This is nowhere near as well as my current record on this stage, which is about 140,000 points more, and it'll give you a ranking as well. It tracks your clear time, it gives you a bonus for doing it even faster if you're really efficient. It tracks how many enemies you've killed, your maximum chain, and the number of times you died. Now, if you really want to do well, though, and get the S+ ranking, like you can see on this level over here, or on some of these ones, you have to complete a level without ever losing your combo, which of course means you can't die. It also means you have to always be killing enemies, which means those bigger enemies have to be killed quickly, and the really interesting thing is you can even do it on boss fights, like you see here. This is the first boss of the game, and it is possible to S+ rank them by killing each stage really quickly, which is an interesting challenge, especially against some of the later bosses, which are really quite challenging indeed. Now, that is the basic mechanics of the game. There's 3 activatable power-ups, which turn into each other if you let them sit for a while. There are 2 weapons for each character, which can be switched between with a dodge, and you want to try and keep your combo high. We're going to hop into a different level here, though, so we can see one of the more interesting things about this particular game, which is that a lot of the stages are dynamic in some way. This one is one of the more clearly dynamic, in which the actual level just changes shape a lot, with a pretty blatant effect as things ripple around and move. I'm really not playing very well right now, but it's because normally I'm concentrating on avoiding things and hitting my targets, and right now I'm trying to concentrate on talking, so I apologize if my gameplay right now isn't of the highest caliber, but I find this kind of game is normally a little bit tricky to play like this, and as you can see, the level evolves as you go, which is pretty cool. It keeps things interesting as you go through longer levels, and it's just a pretty neat idea, really. And there we go, grab ourselves a power up, and we'll keep going here. Now, there are some really cool things about this. Some of the levels are really interesting. Some of them require you to travel long distances through a single area. Some of them revolve around falling down through different stages as you clear it. Some of them involve things like this, where the level evolves. Some of them have moving sections, all kinds of interesting environmental hazards. Some of them actually do have weapons on the levels that are trying to attack you. Some of them have weapons on the levels you can use. So the levels are really well varied and really interesting to keep playing through. Each one normally has some kind of interesting new mechanic going on with it, some kind of interesting new obstacle you'll have to deal with, and they do keep introducing enemies. As you can see here, most of the enemies you're seeing are the same ones we saw in the previous level because this level was earlier in the game, but as you progress, they do continually add in new things. Now, something I haven't mentioned yet are the little white orbs that enemies drop. Every time you kill something, they drop a little power-up orb in a vein similar to something like Cave Story. Whenever you kill an enemy and collect those orbs, they contribute to your score, but also to powering up your primary weapon. If you collect enough of them, then your primary weapon becomes more powerful, and it is in this case, more bullets firing at once, which allows you to clear the rooms quicker. If you die, however, while there is no immediate game-ending effect, you do go back to the basic firepower of your weapon, which can make things a lot harder if you're in the middle of doing a really long level and the enemies are really rushing you hard by the end, or other effects are coming in to give you trouble. Looks like we got a new high score on the stage, though, so that's fun. And that's kind of the basic meat of the game. The levels themselves are pretty quickly paced. It doesn't take a really long time to get through them, but they're really challenging to do perfectly. So if you're into twin-stick shooters, you may enjoy playing your way through the game, just trying to complete all the levels, but the real enjoyment for the game may come from trying to get them all perfect, because it's pretty challenging and often requires you to pay really close attention to your environment. Now, we're going to take a look at a boss, we're going to take a look at some of the different androids, some of the other options in the game, and some of the other things that make it interesting, and then we're going to talk about some of the things I got a little bit of trouble with. So we're going to hop here into the second boss. They're a pretty interesting one, and we'll see how this fight will go for us. Now, each of the bosses has a starting cutscene like this one, where they interact with the specific android you're playing as. Each of them have their own roles in the world of the game, so they'll be reacted to differently by the bosses. So here we have a little greeting here with Cactus. Cactus is a military android coming to this ship to deal with a mysterious robot uprising, so she's not really interested in their problems, these bosses, but we will see how this goes. As you can see here, this boss summons a big swarm of little robots, which then fires at you, and as you can see at the bottom there, the boss has a big health bar. Every time we complete a stage of the boss fight, it will complete a section there, and that is how we determine in many ways our chain in the boss fights. If we let the boss's health stay high for too long, we lose our chain, and now we're back down. So we don't get our S+ ranking on this boss fight. Which means you really have to be super efficient at clearing the boss fights, otherwise you're going to have hard-pressed to actually complete it properly and maintain that S+ ranking. Some of them are really challenging as well, which is fun, keeps you on your toes, and is generally pretty cool. They all have their own different gimmick to them, and it's just a pretty neat idea in general, I feel. So, we're going to try and clear our way through this boss fight nice and quick. Hopefully we don't die at all. That would be really nice. We haven't done a good job of managing our power-up energy, though, which is going to make it harder as the boss fight accelerates in difficulty. There are, of course, some enemies who do contact damage, like these little flying guys. They are very nasty in that respect. If we touch them, they hurt us. But many of the enemies in the game don't actually hurt you on contact, so you can safely hit them and not have to worry too much about it. So, grab ourselves a firepower power-up. We did die, unfortunately, which resets us back to basic power. And as you can see, our battery is starting to drain. Until our battery drains completely, the boss isn't actually have a chance of killing us completely. So we can make use of these stun abilities to kill them. She's trying to shield herself with her little robots. The giant flowers are murdering us. And I think we'll be able to beat her, there we go, before time runs out. So not a perfect completion, as you can see. We didn't manage to keep our combo going. We managed to die. And the boss was definitely an interesting challenge for the first couple times we tried to fight it. So, while it may seem like it's a very short game, it has a lot of replayability to it because trying to get those 100% combos are pretty hard. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at some of the other different types of androids. We can get the android selected at any point on the menu from here. There are 8 of them that become unlocked so far. There's one boss I haven't beaten yet, so there may be a 9th that I don't have access to yet, and they all have their own personalities, like I mentioned earlier, weapons and secondaries. Some of them are pretty cool as well. They often involve a different kind of style. Here we have a shotgun and a plasma field, which is a thing you lay down like a trap on the field. We have a constant laser and a swarm of missiles. A helicopter that you can control around with a black hole weapon as well. We have a railgun, which is a slow-firing, piercing projectile, and mines that you can lay down. A drill and magma. We're talking with Peanut here for a second to see how the different characters can act. But overall, there's a lot of variety to the characters, which can make it a lot more fun, too, to mix around with. As you unlock new people, it's fun to try them out. This character has a sort of flamethrower effect weapon, which is pretty fun to use, but they also have this. A giant drill, which they can use to charge around the stage and charge through enemies, which is pretty fun. It's pretty fun indeed. I'm not worrying too much about the S+ rankings right now, as we are just discussing the characters. But yeah, you can ram people into each other, and like this, these characters are pretty neat. So if you're into a variety of playable characters, this game definitely has you covered there. Now, we're going to hop back out of this game and talk about some of the other things that are in here. So if we go back to the stage select and hop back out, you'll notice there's 2 other options here. There's Infinity Drive, which is an endless survival mode against a variety of increasingly difficult waves, which is interesting. And there's also the Daily Drive, which is a one-shot attempt for 1, 2, 3, or 4 players. All of them are independent, and they are pretty challenging as well. Same idea as the Infinity Drive, except you only get to try it once before your score is logged. Now, if that sounds all well and good to you, it's also worth noting that the game does have probably, if you were to blitz all of the levels without going back, the main campaign is probably only about 4 hours long, but I don't feel that that's representative of the true length of gameplay in this game, because if we go back here to the stage select, you can see I've been playing this game now for probably about 6 hours according to Steam, and I've only S-ranked like 5 of the levels. And there are 25 of them in the game that I've reached so far. So, there's a lot of challenge in here. The only ones I've S-ranked are the easiest ones. So, if you're looking for a challenge, there's definitely that here. Now, if you're looking for more though, the game does have some interesting options. As you play through levels, you earn credits, which can be used to unlock interesting EX options. There's a variety of different ones available to you to choose from. There's, for example, we can go into first-person camera here. That'll make things a bit more challenging, won't it? So let's hop into a level now with that on so you can see what that's all about. And we're going to play as... let's play as Shiitake this time. So we have railguns and we have propeller mines. We'll hop into a level and see what this is all about. It's a little bit crazy, but we are now in first person playing this game, which is pretty cool. It's really hard to play like this, but it's a really neat feature that I wouldn't have initially expected. It does make it really difficult though, because your environmental awareness is significantly reduced when playing in first person, which can make it really hard to keep your scores up. But if you're looking for a real interesting challenge, this is one. It's pretty cool, this kind of additional feature. It's locked at the beginning, but it can be unlocked as you play. And there's more of them than just that. If we head back to the menu, there's a variety of other interesting EX options, like we could turn on J.J. Abrams visual mode, and we could maybe turn off our heads-up display. And we can go back and try that again. So we'll hop into another level here and see what that's like. We'll play this time as Aubergine. And we'll play on this level here, which goes dark after a while. Now we have no heads-up display at all. It's just the game, and everything has a whole lot of lens flare on it. This character might not have been the best to show it off, but now we can see. Now we're in the dark, you can see lens flares all over the place. So, it's interesting. If you really want to words are really hard, holy cow. If you really want to mess with things, that's a good way to do it. As you can see, there's a lot of lens flare now, but there are some other interesting ones too that I'm not going to show you. For example, Mega Weapons mode. Turns off your score tracking, but gives you crazy firepower. You could play, of course, with a bunch of AI partners, so you get the multiplayer experience by yourself. You could play on the number of players that you would have, number of enemies you have with 4 players as a single player. You could have 4 of the same character if you're playing in multiplayer. You could play normal-sized head mode instead of huge head mode, because the characters' heads are already enormous. There's all kinds of interesting little EX modes in here that you can play with. Of course, there are just 10 of them, but they are definitely interesting and pretty cool that they're in there. There's also unlockable codex entries if you want to learn about the story of the game, unlockable music that you can play from the menu, and sound test options as well as you play through. So overall, I'd say this game is pretty cool. Now there are a couple little problems I have with it. And let's see if I can't quickly show you a level where one of those exists. Some of the levels do have environmental hazards, and while that's not a problem, some of the way that they evolve sometimes drops you into those hazards without you being able to really do anything about it. This one here, I think, is the one I'm thinking of in particular. This one here is a tower, if I believe, and every time you complete a stage, you fall down to the next floor. And the big problem here is that, yeah, you can see you fall down to the next floors. Some of those floors have environmental hazards on them, and if you're unlucky, you can actually fall directly onto those hazards when the stage section finishes, and it just kills you outright, which is not really that cool. I'm just going to try and show you what I mean here, so you can get a gist of what I'm trying to say. But the environmental changes are really interesting and help really diversify the stages and keep them really cool, but when that kind of thing happens, it's not super great. And I mean, you can avoid these kinds of problems if you're careful, but sometimes on the first try through, it's pretty hard to do that. It can be a little bit discouraging when you die through something that was really out of your control, when you had no idea there was a trap below you and you fall directly onto it. There is one other problem I have. As the enemies drop into the stage like that, they do drop in quite quickly, and there are some enemies which do damage on contact, and in particular, there are some enemies which are basically just mines. If the mine enemy falls on you, you're going to have a bad time. It's basically just going to outright kill you, and you're probably going to have to start the level over again if you're going for a perfect combo, which is a little bit disappointing. So, those are really my 2 major complaints. I really enjoy the main game experience of trying to get through the stages. The bosses are all pretty interesting. Some of them have really interesting mechanics that switch things up. The game does a good job of helping you to get those combos. Even when enemies are off screen, you can see markers pointing you towards them. There is a good variety in stages, a good variety in enemies, a good variety in bosses, good variety in characters and weaponry, and it's just pretty solid. But the fact that sometimes the game can just drop things on you which will kill you is a little bit disappointing. So I think that's my biggest complaint with it. If you can handle that occasionally happening as you're learning the stages, then I think if you like twin stick shooters, I almost did it again. I fell right onto that flamethrower last time, and it killed me outright. If you can handle that kind of thing, I think you'll probably really enjoy Assault Android Cactus. It is a really solid game if you're into the twin stick shooter genre, and I think you should probably check it out. There'll be a link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. This has been Vanguard of Valor, and welcome to Assault Android Cactus.